lot of research on trying to understand the effective microorganisms that we learned about at Omar Gonzalez farm in Veradero. So they were trying to actually figure out what types of microorganisms are in this mix and study it more scientifically that way. And then the research station itself was just really beautiful. This picture was taken early in the morning, the morning we were leaving, and it was just a really beautiful setting as well as being an interesting place. So just to remind people that we were at the research station, and then we went on to Santa Clara. So in Santa Clara, we got some of the best time we had in Organiponicos, the urban organic agriculture projects, and we also spent quite a bit of time visiting a memorial to Che Guevara, who is one of the big heroes of the Cuban Revolution.
It was also fairly typical in the Organiponicos. There would be sort of political messages on signs.
Yes,
and
very
sort
much
of,
so.
Quotations, a little bit of philosophy. It was quite interesting.
Yeah, and this one especially, well, it was called El Patria, it's a patriotic place. And it had signs for the Cuban Five, which are like 5 Cubans who are being held in the United States. And so it had like political messages woven into the agricultural project too. And as you can see, it's very, very urban, like there's apartment blocks right around it. And they had a little store to sell the produce right there. And they said that they sold it right to the local community. And Heather will talk a little bit more about like the social organization of Organiponicos later in the presentation. That was something very interesting that we learned. And then we also visited the Che Guevara monument, which was just huge. And we had a tour guide who actually fought with Che, who showed us around. And then we went into a museum under the ground here where you were not allowed to take photos. So you can take photos of the front part of this monument, but not at the museum. It was almost had the feeling like a religious place, like a church or something, and that's why you couldn't take photos.
Yeah, there was really that sense of this was a sacred place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it was also sort of a crypt for ashes and bones from various.
That's true. Yeah, from like this man who is now, for us at least, being a tour guide. Then a lot of the people he fought with had died, and so then their ashes were kept underneath this memorial. And so then next we went on to St. Spiritus, and we stayed in a hotel right in downtown St. Spiritus. And so this is from the top of the hotel, you got a gorgeous view of the city, and so that's what this is. It's unfortunately a box that we just couldn't take away, and tried and it wouldn't go away. But the hotel is really beautiful, and we had solar collectors to heat the hot water for the hotel, so that was really nice to see. And then we visited St. Spiritus was really a center for permaculture projects. Like one of the organizations that helped to organize our tour also really supports permaculture projects. And so there was a lot of permaculture projects, more than we had time to visit really, around St. Spiritus. So I'm not going to show pictures from all of them. But one where we spent a lot of time was this farm, the Casimira family farm, and it was a family farm with a couple and their adult children running the farm, and it was outside of St. Spiritus. And we had a lunch there. Here's the lunch being cooked, and it was also a very integrated farm. They had not only pigs, but like rabbits and chickens and fish and geese, I think. Anyway, it was a very, very diverse farm.
We were fed at so many of these places we went to, so it was kind of a challenge for 2 young women who were vegetarian.
Yeah, one was vegan and one was vegetarian. So that was a challenge. They would end up eating a lot of like rice and white bread. And then this place was called. Oh.
Did you find vegetarianism on the common?
No, it wasn't very common.
Did people understand it though? Like, or were they like, oh no, it's okay, you can still eat it?
Well, especially vegan was hard to understand.
Yeah.
But
They didn't try and persuade anybody.
no, oh no, they didn't try to persuade you to eat what you didn't want, but it was unusual, especially to be vegan. And then this place was called Cielo de Gomas. So for those who speak Spanish, Tire Heaven. And looking at it, you can probably guess why. There was a lot of tires incorporated into the permaculture project. And this place was also really interesting to visit because in May and June of last year, and again this year, then Ron is organizing a 7-week course for Canadians to go and do a permaculture course and internship. And so last year, I think there were 11 Canadians, and 5 or 6 of them worked on the design and implementation of this project. So it was interesting to know that it's now being run by Cubans, but Canadians were involved in setting it up.
You see the maple leaf there.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I chose that photo. Yeah, this was a really cool place. Like there was tires, and there was also like a tire teepee that I just didn't have a good photo of, but it was like a stack of tires going really, really three-dimensional, and then with vines over top of it to shade it.
And there was a little bench.
Yeah, you could also like sit inside there.
Place to just go and meditate.
Yeah, well, this was a really cool place. And then we went on and visited Trinidad. We didn't visit any farms in Trinidad. We just kind of spent a night there, passing through.
It's a World Heritage Site, so it looks like a really old city.
Yes, it does. So I'll show some pictures of that too. But a few other interesting things there is there's so many crafts with recycled things. So these are various different crafts made from recycled pop bottles and beer bottles and stuff like that. And then this was really cool that we just were walking down the street and saw through a little, very narrow doorway a woman making straw hats. And we also saw a guy walking a pig on a leash. And
an old man carrying a rooster.
Yes, the pig on the leash, then myself and another woman was like, oh wow, that's so strange, we have to get a photo of it. So we were like running down the street after him to catch up to get a photo. And when we did catch up, he seemed like not too put off, so he let us take a photo. And then here's what it shows what the streets were like. There's like a really, really old cobblestone, really beautiful city. And then another old church. I just thought it was really beautiful. And then we went on, so we're on our way from Trinidad, kind of making our way back to Havana. So it was quite a long drive, but one of the places we visited en route was a medicinal plants area. And Heather will talk a little bit more about medicinal plants in Cuba later. But basically, yeah, it was a farm devoted to medicinal plants, and this map shows all the different provinces of Cuba where there's medicinal plants being grown. And then we went on to Havana and spent 2 days in Havana, and we saw Plaza de la Revolution with a huge statue of Che, and Plaza Viejo with the cathedral, some lots of funny egg taxis. And then we come back to Havana later, so I'll show more photos of Havana when we get to that point. Then also in Havana area, we visited another really interesting organiponical, and this one was actually featured on The Nature of Things with David Suzuki, so it's famous in that way. But it was, for me, the two things that really stood out about this organiponico is that they had an on-farm lab with a microscope and studying like insect and microorganism biocontrol right on the farm. And then they also propagated mycorrhizal fungi on farm, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later. But that's exciting to me because that's close to what I study. That I'm doing a PhD in microbiology, so that's the kind of thing that I was really looking out for. But it's also mycorrhizae are notoriously hard to propagate, so to see them being done on farm was very exciting. And then we went on. So now we're like en route between Havana and Pinar del Rio province, the most westerly province. And we passed through Las Terrazas, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and also a resort for foreigners, but also for Cubans. So, and we had a tour of that. And so it was kind of cooler. It was up in the mountains with pine trees. And it had a really nice swimming area where some of the people we met were Canadians or even a few Americans, but then some of the people camping here were Cubans. And there were campgrounds, a few very simple cabins, and a swimming pool.
And it used to be a poppy plantation.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they had basically deforested all the hills.
Mm-hmm.
And they terraced the hills and planted trees. And basically, Las Terrazas is terraces. And so they restored it, and that's why it's a heritage site now.
Yeah, it was restored, I think, in the 1960s, something like that. So it's restored into a really beautiful village, and with still really good coffee. We still had coffee in a locally owned coffee shop there. But
Soy Café María.
sí, yeah. And so so Las Terrazas was in here somewhere, and then we went on to Vinales. And so Vinales was a relatively small town, but also a fairly touristy town. Like there was a lot. We stayed in Casa Particulares, like guest houses, and there was right in the center of the town. There was a lot of other foreigners staying in guest houses. But if you went here, I just went for a short walk outside the town, and it was really, really beautiful with these limestone hills, the Mojones. So the ground would really erode with the heart of it, the rock left sticking up. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful landscape. And then here's the Casa Particular, the guest house where I stayed. And then,
Excuse me.
yes,
Whose house was that?
it was Villa Dorvalis. Do you?
It looks very much like that.
Yeah, there were so many, as you probably saw. There was I was amazed how many Casa Particulares there were. Do you remember what the name of yours was?
No, it was very distinctive because it had a couple of dolphin statues at the top of the roof, and then there was sort of a giraffe-like pattern on all the stone around it.
Yeah. And then there was another one across the street from where Heather stayed, where there was a dog on the roof. That if you walked by, the dog would run up and down on the roof and bark at you. So no, it was a really interesting place. And then we visited some farms in the area. One of them was this farm where they had very diverse intercropping of perennial and annual plant species. And then they also had aquaculture and pigs. And they also had a fruit stand in the local hospital where they would sell fruit and fruit juices. So we went to the farm first, and then we went to the hospital and had fruit juice, and then I looked around the food court. What are you laughing about?
Because I was already sick, and everybody was sort of hemming and hawing about having this juice because it was cut with water, and everybody was afraid to drink it. But they'd ask us specifically to go there to have this. It was the gesture, the gracious gesture. And so everybody's like, oh.
And I think some of the juice was okay and some wasn't. I think the one I had was guanaba, and it looked fairly okay. It smelled good, and it looked like just fruit. But then some people had one that was like a fruit cocktail, so it was cut up bits of fruit floating in water. And then some people had a mango one that I just smelled it, and it smelled rotten. So that one I would just dump out. Don't drink that one.
Well, it was just strange too, because here was a hospital, and this was just looked really grubby around there, and people looked sick and tired, and
yeah, no, and there was people selling sandwiches with meat in them, but they were just sitting out in the sun, not refrigerated or anything. So it looked like a good way to make yourself sick.
Yeah, it didn't look like a good place to get healthy.
Okay, and now we went back to Havana, and this was something that I went for quite a long walk, so I just had to get a photo of it. It's the anti-imperialist monument in downtown Havana. So it's And the United States doesn't have an embassy in Cuba, but it does have an Office of American Interest. And so this monument is like just a huge, you can't even see all of it in this photo, but it's a huge series of poles and sculptures and like slogans about the Cuban Revolution, all sort of pointing at this Office of American Interest. And so then this statue is Jose Marti, one of the founders of Cuba, was like a hero of not the 1959 Cuban Revolution, but a previous, when Cuba was trying to free itself from Spain, a hero of that time. And then you can't see his hand in this picture, but he's like pointing at the Office of American Interest. And then I saw lots of other interesting things on my walk to and from this place. So I saw a lot of this where it's just like a street with various degrees of rundown buildings, some very nice, some really rundown, but then just selling vegetables, like a huge, there's the classic old Cuban car, but then a huge stack of carrots and other vegetables in the background. So you could just go in and buy fresh vegetables. Like in this hour walk, I passed, I don't know, a lot of these. And so here's another one, Punto de Vende, a point of sale for vegetables. And then, yeah, lots and lots of different, like pineapples, bananas, I can't tell what else, but lots of other vegetables. And then Nick Heather took this photo of me, then we went on a walk along the Malecon, the waterfront, and it was so windy, so waves were crashing up on like over the seawall. And then also on my walk back from the Office of American Interest, I came on the art street. So it's just normal buildings everywhere else, and then suddenly a street like this. Just all kinds of crazy art projects. And then we came back to Veradero, to the beach, and went swimming for a few minutes before the police came and told us to get out because it was too windy.
No, it was because of the...
oh, it's because of the jellyfish. Yeah, you're right.
Oh.
Oh yeah, we don't have a picture of the jellyfish, but yes, there were jellyfish that when it was windy they would wash up on the shore, and they didn't sting us, but apparently they can sting. So police would come, and if you stayed in the water too long, come and blow their whistle and tell you to get out. And then farewell from the group. It was our farewell night. So then the last bit of the presentation is kind of different take-home messages, different things that we saw in many of the sites we visited, and things that really stuck with us as things we learned. So one of them was the integration of everything, how it wasn't, rather than having like, this is just sugar, or this is just one monocrop, there would be integration of many plants, and then also integration of plants and animals in one farm, and then even more, there'd be like integration of art, or pottery, or research, or medicine into farming, into agriculture. So things were just very integrated rather than being really separated. And also direct marketing, like the Punto de Vende, or the juices in the hospital.
Some places would have some value-added product.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, they'd have like jams or...
I noticed in your picture of that street where there was vegetables, there was a hugera, so like a fruit.
Yeah, which one?
Oh,
is it?
It's further back. Yeah, there. Hugera.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Hugera?
Yeah, it was a juice place that was closed.
Place?
Yeah, but no, there was a lot of those. There was even one of those is a little hugera like that. That where they had a very small organic in Veradero, and then hugera. So yeah, they were common. And then the use of permaculture, especially around Sancti Spiritus. I think there was some in other places, but most of what we visited was around Sancti Spiritus because that's where this one organization that really supports permaculture was based. And so some of the permaculture projects would be basically organic grows, where then they'd added other more holistic features like a composting toilet or water harvesting, or just other things that go beyond the normal model of organic botanicals. And then there were rural sites like the Cielo de Gomez site that the Canadians helped build, or the Casamira family farm.
Which was very big.
Yeah, it was very big, but just run by how many people? 4 adults or 5 adults?
There were a couple of people.
Oh yeah, they did have a couple
Yeah,
other
there was
people.
The guy with the pig, and then there was another guy who worked for them.
Yeah, so they did have a few more people, and they said they used to be like conventional chemical agriculture, and then had made the change. And it was really noticeable when you parked on the highway, and then you had to walk to get there, and you walked through like a field that I think was conventional agriculture, and I was kind of not feeling that, like I was just feeling like I had a headache and I was too hot that day, and walking through the field to get to their farm, like it was so hot. And then as soon as you got into their farm, it was a lot cooler. Like things were just much more lush and green and shaded, and it just felt a lot more comfortable than in the field outside.
It was kind of that feeling of finding an oasis in the desert.
And then another thing we noticed with pretty much everywhere we visited is a willingness to share knowledge and like spread knowledge from farmer to farmer within Cuba, and also to foreigners. So for example, this picture is from Omar Gonzalez Eco Farm, and he was saying how he'd just come back from eastern Cuba, where he'd been telling people about the effective microorganisms that he was so happy with, and that I think he learned that originally from the Japanese, but then he'd also been to maybe, I forget which other countries, maybe Mexico and Costa Rica, some other Latin American countries where they were sharing this technology. So rather than someone trying to like patent it or hoard it and try and make money from it, they were sharing things.
Yeah, so the idea is that they're teaching other farmers how to develop their own. And the Japanese developed the technology, but they sell it. And so the Cubans are sort of figuring out how to do it themselves and then sharing the knowledge across Cuba.
So kind of in contrast to in North America, where the uses of microorganisms to help in agriculture that I'm aware of anyway are commercialized, so you have to apply it every year and you have to buy it. Whereas here they were trying to develop something that you could grow yourself and maintain yourself, rather than buying it over and over again and spending money to as an input for your farm. It's more sustainable, like the farm can produce more of what it needs itself. So there was a lot of examples of that kind of thing that we saw.
And on the left, with his back to us, is Fernando.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Fernando, and he belonged to this organization, ACTA. I can't tell you what it stands for anymore, but they are working to spread knowledge about agroecology all across Cuba.
Yeah, we visited their office outside of Havana, and they had pamphlets for a huge array of different crops and different situations that would give information on how to organically and sustainably grow these crops. So rather than saying apply this much of this type of chemical fertilizer, it would give more organic methods of how to grow things.
And the organization is structured so that it's a sort of hierarchical system, except that they have all of these local representatives who come to a regional meeting and learn something, but then they take it back to their individual regions and share with the farmers there.
So is farmer to farmer an actual organization? Or is
that might be part of what the acronym for ACTAF is, right?
No.
What is that acronym?
The farmer to farmer, ACTAF. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, it's ACTAF. That's the whole acronym.
But farmer to